Good afternoon and welcome to the Council Committee of the whole of April 8th, 2025. I'd like to call this meeting to order and take the opportunity to read our land acknowledgement. The city respectfully acknowledges the Beaver Cree, Dene, and Métis people as the original caretakers of these lands and surrounding areas. We are grateful to live, learn, work, and play on Treaty 8 territory within Turtle Island and acknowledge these lands have been home to diverse and sovereign First Nations and Inuit nations since time immemorial. Thanks for that opportunity. Today's a relatively light agenda. Moving on to item number 3. First, under reports and advocacy update, and I'll turn that over to Ms. Pinnock.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Not too much on the advocacy front. As follow-up to the City Council meeting on March 24th and the adoption of the 2025 priorities, we are working on updating content on the city's website, updating our advocacy brochure, and doing some additional research on the new priorities. And we hope to have that completed in the next couple of weeks. As part of that work, we're also putting together a plan of how to advance the advocacy priorities and the other partners that we'll need to engage with, and the ministries and ministers that council will want to secure meetings with related to those priorities. There was also a letter of support for the forestry industry sent to the Premier following the request from AFPA at Council on March 21st. The city also had an opportunity to meet with Minister Williams in late March to discuss the Recovery Centre and also the state of mental health supports in the city and to better understand Recovery Alberta's model. And we do have some follow-up meetings in the coming weeks with various ministers that we're preparing for as well. We're also doing some work to prepare for the events in May, both FCM in Ottawa and also Mid-Sized City Mayors Caucus, and some data gathering on those fronts. There's a couple other things that we have been monitoring. One is the Provincial Priorities Act, which I'll talk a little bit about in the grants update. And the other was the Municipal Affairs Statutes Amendment Act. And some announcements did come out from the Government of Alberta today around that. So we'll be doing a review to see if that impacts any of the advocacy priorities. And then also working on the resolutions for AB Munis for the Fall Convention. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you for that update. I'll look to see if council has any questions. Seeing none, I'll go on to item 3.2, the grant verbal update, and I'll leave that with Ms. Pinnock, please.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Clayton. A couple of successes on the grants front. So we have received word that we were successful for the Alberta Health Services Addiction and Mental Health grant for mobile outreach needle mitigation work in the amount of $161,000 for 3 years. The Government of Alberta Settlement Integration and Language Partnership or Projects, the SLIP grant for $226,000 to continue the Grande Prairie Inclusive and Caring Community Initiative. And also through the Government of Canada Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada Settlement Program and Resettlement, $301,000 for the Grande Prairie Local Immigration Partnership Program. We have 5 federal grants out of the 17 that are outstanding. That due to the federal election and the caretaker convention, we will likely be waiting till after the election and potentially into May to receive word on those programs. Our coordinator has actually reached out to a couple of those departments just to understand timelines for those, because a couple of them, one of them is related to Canada Summer Jobs, and the other is, one of them is also related to the Indigenous Peoples Day celebration work. So just to try to understand from a planning perspective if there'll be timelines for those grants. We did receive word that we were not successful for the Local Growth and Sustainability Grant. So we are following up with the ministry on that to get some additional information on that particular grant. And we have reached out to get additional information on the Housing Accelerator Fund grant that we weren't successful for, but due to the caretaker period, that will have to wait a little bit longer to get any feedback on that. Since the last update in March, we've applied for a couple of smaller grants, but the bigger one that I wanted to mention for council is the phase 2 of the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta, the FREA grant. for the phase 2 of the fire guard protection in the amount of $126,000. The other thing that is of note related to grants is the Provincial Priorities Act, which came into effect April 1st, and it requires that provincial entities obtain prior approval from Alberta's government before entering into amending existing or renewing agreements with the federal government. So this does impact our grants when we do sign contracts with the federal government. So certain agreements will be exempt from approval, including agreements under $100,000. Those will just be submitted to the minister for an exemption. If it's up to $5 million, they'll be subject to the approval of the lead ministry's minister, and agreements that are worth more than $5 million will require cabinet approval. The government of Alberta has hosted a couple of webinars on this, and there were quite a few questions that were posed to government staff. The one thing that we are most curious about is the timeline, because there's often very short turnaround times for grant applications that we are successful for in signing contracts. So we are working through those pieces administratively. And we have shared that information on the webinars with some external community groups as well that might be impacted by that. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
I just had a question. I see no one else in the queue. Would you be able to provide this information in writing when you get a minute? In particular, it's the grants that we were approved for that I'd like to see more information on. Thanks.
Absolutely.
I see no one else in the queue, so we'll go to item 3.3. And just give me a minute here. I'll turn this one over to Ms. Whiteway for introduction.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. So today's recommendation is that Council Committee of the Whole receive this report for information. During budget deliberations on November 18th, committee did direct administration to bring back a report showing all the expenses related to managing assets in 2025. So for a bit of context and background, asset management is the city's process of managing assets. That's the roads, bridges, buildings, equipment, vehicles, technology, and much more. Asset management enables the organization to optimize asset life cycles, responsibly prepare budgets, and plan for the future. Asset management also helps to improve infrastructure longevity, provide data for enhanced decision-making, and provides the city additional access to funding and support from other levels of government. In terms of spending in 2025, there is one significantly large project associated with asset management, and this is for software, the Enterprise Asset Maintenance Project, currently budgeted under a 3-year plan for a total allocation of $2.1 million. This budget is for the purchase and implementation and is a one-time project that should have a useful life of up to 20 years. Future licensing costs associated for ongoing operations would be budgeted once the system's been chosen and implemented. Other asset management projects are routinely seen on our capital plan, and the cost for 2025 totaled $667,000. So that is design and construction manuals, inspection programs, and plans and studies. For perspective, the city's total net book value of tangible capital assets is $711 million. So this represents 0.09% investment in projects associated with asset management. In terms of operational considerations, it is difficult to cost out an exact dollar amount of what asset management would cost. It is integrated into a large number of staff responsibilities across many departments and at various levels. Time and effort does vary depending on the complexity and amount of assets within that department. So a couple examples, transportation services is integrated together with engineering, where together they monitor the roads, bridges, paths, trails, and stormwater infrastructure. Our IT team manages technology assets, ensuring timely and effective evergreening, managing life cycle maintenance and upkeep of our technology infrastructure. We can look at corporate facilities management, who's responsible for all of the city's vertical assets and components, which includes renovations, improvements, upgrades, preventative and reactive maintenance. and fleet. They manage every vehicle and equipment within the organization, including the life cycle of these vehicles and equipment, the maintenance, any additions, and any disposals. So operational costs associated with managing assets, as I said, includes various staff within the organization. Staff time can range from 25% to 60% of hours worked. Otherwise, portions of salary costs, other than portions of salary costs, there are very minimal operational costs associated with asset management. And provided in the report are a few examples of various jobs and within which departments, and what is estimated as attributed to asset management in their daily hours. So with that, I will conclude that asset management plays a key role in the City of Grande Prairie, enabling management to, as I said, optimize life cycle, prepare budgets, plan for the future, improve infrastructure longevity, provide data for decision making, and provide additional access to funding and support. Administration recommends that Council Committee of the Whole receive this report for information. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for your report, CFO Whiteway. I'll open it up to Council for questions, recognizing Councillor Palat.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton, and thanks, Chief Whiteway, for the reports. Definitely gives me a more educated feeling of what we're doing to manage our assets, so thank you for that. I am curious about our costs associated with managing our physical assets, our vertical assets. When I look on here, is that the capital asset analysis for 60% within financial services, or where would our fleet service or our corporate services team sit within that manages all of our vertical buildings?
Ms. Whiteway?
Thank you, through the mayor. So that wasn't chosen as an example. And so this was more to demonstrate that really in almost every single department, there's an element of asset management responsibility for employees. So, you know, the staff at Eastlink, for example, are going to provide the information needed to facilities as well to support them in any of the maintenance that may need to happen at that facility. So we had taken examples of different positions, and so corporate facilities wasn't one of them. However, we have looked at our capital asset analysts. So essentially, asset management's always occurred at the city. That's how we build budgets. That's how we plan workloads. That's how we do business. We've recently, in the last few years, formalized more of a centralization just to ensure consistency in process and approach. So a lot of your time in terms of that truly asset management program would live centrally within financial services to oversee all of the work being done by every department.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's just too hard to extrapolate. The only thing that I thought on here, I guess my assumption was we were going to have a line item of something around this is what it costs to physically manage our vertical structures with, you know, 1 or 2 full-time FTEs or whatever that would look like. But it might be just too much work to do that level, I guess, on this. But no, appreciate the report.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. Thanks, Chief Whiteway. This is more educational for me. I'm just kind of curious. When it comes to our software, do we pay per computer, or is it a flat organizational rate that we pay?
Ms. Whiteway?
Thank you for the question, through the mayor. For computer laptop type purchases or for software?
Software.
Okay, well, we have a variety of, so some legacy systems are more owned by the city. We've been getting more into cloud-based programs. So that's where you end up with annual operational costs. So you will pay, similar to ERP, we went through that process. We pay those upfront capital costs, which are really in order to build a system that you need and to implement that system. From there, you really pay negotiated annual access licensing fees to remain active in those programs. So we've gone more cloud-based. That's where the industry is going as well. So that's So that's sort of where we're at in terms of costs.
Okay, so we have the ability to negotiate, I guess, rather than just paying a flat rate. Again, I just wanted to understand what we do, so thank you.
Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton, and thanks again for the report, Chief Waitway. I'm just going to tag on. You already answered one of it with the tail end of your question. So licensing fees for the system. Is there, you said in the report you haven't settled on one yet. Is there an estimated cost between those? And the only reason why I ask is because every year during budget, your department always gets raked over the coals about technology and the costs associated with it. We're approaching a new election. We're going to likely have at least one new member of council. Do you know roughly in our budget how much of an impact that would be for the licensing?
Thank you for the question through the mayor. I don't at this time where we haven't run a competitive process. I can tell you an ERP system, such as we had implemented, would be more widely used by users. So every staff has access. So there's increased licensing when you have greater usage. So there will be more specialized roles having access to an enterprise asset management system. So I'd anticipate you wouldn't have as high of licensing costs as a robust ERP. In terms of, I know in legacy systems, which are not great context, but they were cheaper, and we're at the point actually we don't even get charged anymore because they don't update them anymore. They don't support them anymore. So that's triggered additionally the need, but I don't have a range of what that would be at this point in time.
Okay, so I guess all I was looking at was is it a tens of thousands license fee or is it a hundreds of thousands license fee?
Ms. Whiteway.
Through the mayor, ERP is a few hundreds of thousands. So what I would anticipate you'd be lower than that, but not as low as just tens of thousands.
Okay.
If I was to estimate.
Awesome, good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Blackmore.
So continuing the conversation about enterprise asset management, you have an amount here for 2024, so that made me think that you'd already purchased it. So you just have set that money aside, waiting for this purchase. When do you expect that to go forward?
Ms. Whiteway.
Thank you, through the mayor. So a couple things. The 3-year plan was to reduce the impact of capital tax. And knowing that these purchases and implementations do take a number of years. So rather than having built one budget year with $2 million of capital tax, we had strategically presented it as a multi-year. And we will take a few years to be able to implement. So right now, our approach to software is to always look at what we currently have and what can that offer. So we're exploring, we've got Oracle now as our ERP. So we have to take this step first to see what can Oracle offer us. Will it meet our requirements for asset management? The preference is always to work with the systems we already have in place. So next steps, we've developed requirements. We know what we need. And so we're exploring with Oracle. If we're unsuccessful, we will then go out to market.
Okay. My understanding was when we talked about this in 2023, I guess, when we were looking at the 2024 budget, is that the legacy programs that we were running did not easily integrate. So they were really very standalone and made it difficult for multiple departments to work on the same project. So that's one of the key priorities that you're looking at.
Yeah, through the mayor, we prioritize integration with current systems if we can't use a current system. So I should clarify, Oracle has asset management, so that's where we're first going to investigate. But ultimately, we're trying to always go with less systems supporting functions and therefore hopefully looking at one system that meets the requirements for, because we do have varying needs between fleet, facilities, and engineering especially. So we've got to meet all of those needs.
And I have one more question about that. Oftentimes, computer modeling and reality don't really line up that well. And computer modeling seems to me that it's more prone to encourage action than reality might require. So even though we're going to be using computer modeling for asset management, are we going to have a really strong oversight where Brian will drive down a road and say, no, this road is fine, we don't need to do it this year? I'm just concerned that we will follow the trigger of the computer modeling. Blindly is not the right word, but maybe with too much faith.
Ms. Whiteway?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'll start, and perhaps Chief Glavin, if he has anything to add. And I will clarify, this isn't necessarily just computer modeling. That would be a piece of it. And yes, with any type of modeling, we still look at it for reasonability. We still look at it for what's actually happening and whether that is necessary now or later. But really, too, what also is lacking is somewhere to house all of that information. And what like a department like facilities would rely on is they need to know when was the last time those filters were changed in that, when was the last time we did a cleaning or a shutdown. Like having very accurate record keeping of all the little inputs and preventative maintenance or even reactive maintenance issues that have arisen. That's sort of another benefit to having that maintenance program.
Chief Glavin, anything to add?
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, the main thing would be, the way that we manage the roads would be we have a mix of the non-destructive testing that we do that goes out and it detects if there's any base issues, deflections in the road, or anything of that nature. And then that data gets put back to us. We can see it on a GIS program. But before we make any investment decisions, we go out there and we visually inspect the area, see if it meets any of the, one, make sure that the data that we received lines up with what the on-the-ground conditions are. Occasionally, you'll get a false positive on something where you go out in the field and what showed up on the data in the non-destructive testing is not the condition in the field, and you'll have to correct for that. But ultimately, everything has to be verified with a set of eyes before we would go out and make an investment decision.
I just lived through a wide period of time where computer modeling was the god, and I think we paid for things that we didn't need to.
Any further questions from council? Seeing none, I'll look for business arising. Councillor O'Toole. Thank you for that. Opportunity for discussion or debate. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question.
O'Connor in favor.
And that carries unanimously. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks for your time.